Welcome to Just Write Julie, the writing podcast where craft meets strategy and creativity meets clarity. I'm Julie Navickas, romance author, corporate communications pro, and university instructor. Most writing podcasts stay in one lane. This one brings together three: craft, career, and communication. Each episode features authors, editors, and marketers to help you strengthen the work, position it, and talk about it with confidence. If you're ready to write better and share your work with intention, you're in the right place. Just Write Julie. Let's get to work. Welcome to Just Write Julie, the podcast where writing meets strategy and creativity meets clarity. I'm your host, Julie Navickas, a multi-published romance author, communication professional, and university instructor. And today we're doing something a little bit different on the show. Writers spend a lot of time talking about publishing, editing, marketing, and all the complicated parts of storytelling. But before any of that comes the thing that matters most, your imagination. And that's why I'm excited to welcome a very special guest today, my daughter, Lily.
Hi.
Lily is a fourth grade student who loves stories, creativity, and using her imagination to build new worlds and characters. So, Lil, welcome to the show.
Hello.
And you're coming to us live from your bedroom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's perfect. Well, Lily, let's go ahead and dive right in because I know that you are a lover of stories. You like to create new worlds and new characters, and I think that's something that you and I share. So let's hear a little bit about kind of where you're at in your storytelling career. Sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So let's start with a simple question. What do you love most about stories?
I love most about stories is the title and characters. That's what brings you in.
Absolutely, right? So when you say title, right, you think, okay, if you read an intriguing title, you want to know more about what the story is, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then once you start reading those characters, they can become quite compelling. They have a great story to tell. They want something, they have a goal. That's what pulls you into the story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, same girlfriend. I think the same thing. So if I have a story that has a really intriguing title and then the characters pull me in right away, that's the best part. I love it. Well, Lil, you have written several stories in your writing career so far. Where do your ideas primarily come from?
My ideas come from dreams, books, ideas from my imagination,
Yeah.
and maybe some movies.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's very valid, right? We get a lot of our ideas from existing stories. So maybe we'll watch something or we'll read something and go, ooh, I could probably use something there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one thing you point out too, right, is they also come from what you've experienced, what you have in your life, who's part of your life, what they do. So things that have happened to you, vacations we've been on, trips we've taken, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Ideas can come from anywhere. Okay, Lil, let's think about a time when maybe you've had an idea that just kind of pops into your head. Have you ever thought, ooh, that would make for a really great story?
Definitely.
Hmm.
Like when I made the book Full of Love, I've had a million ideas pop into my head.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about that. So you wrote a story called Full of Love. What was it about?
It was about adopting my dog Luna.
So we have Luna. She is a 3-year-old border collie blue heeler, and she is full of energy, isn't she?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, full of energy, right? And I love the story that you wrote about the day that we adopted her, right? Yeah, how she came home with us in the car, how we took her to pet store, right?
Yeah.
One of the really cool parts about that story, Lily, is that you didn't just tell it from your perspective, right? But we got to think about, what did Luna experience? Was she scared, right? Was she excited? How did she feel, right, when she met all of us for the first time?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, right? So our ideas can come from anywhere, especially our lived experiences.
Yeah.
So, Lil, in your opinion, what makes a story interesting enough that you want to keep reading?
What make keeps me interested is the plot in this setting.
Hmm.
Well, yeah, the setting and the characters.
Absolutely. All three of those kind of combined, right? So if
Yeah.
we have some characters that are compelling that we want to learn a little bit more about, if the story takes place in a really unique, interesting space, and then of course the plot, right? What's going on,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Definitely. I
Yes.
think a good combination of those three absolutely sets you up for success.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about creating characters, right? Because we just kind of determined characters are one of the number one things that pull us into the story and keep us interested in the story. So, Lily, when you are inventing a character, what are some things you think about?
I think about is the plot,
Mhm.
definitely. The characters of the name,
Oh, yeah,
because you always gotta name your characters,
you do.
and the name always describes the characters.
Oh, okay. Well, give me an example.
Like Daisy, I
Mhm.
think of the flower Daisy
Uh-huh.
and how her hair would look like.
Yeah,
And yeah.
absolutely. So, kind of like a lily, right?
Yeah.
I like that approach, right? So sometimes if we think of a name, we start to develop kind of an image, right, of what that character could look like. What color they like hair if they have, what color their eyes might be, how do they speak, right? How do they interact in the world, right?
Mhm.
Absolutely. Those are some really good things to get you started. One thing I like to do, Lily, is when I'm thinking about creating a character, I will create something called a character profile. Have you ever done something like this before in school?
No, but it sounds interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a character profile, it gives you a little bit of time and space to think about, okay, here's my character. And we think about their backstory, their history. What are the things they want most in the world? What are some things that they're scared of? What kind of job they have? What kind of pets they have, right? So, you just kind of give yourself a little space to think about who they are holistically. And I think that's a great place to start when you're starting to brainstorm. I'm sure you'll get there. Maybe in fourth grade this year, you'll do something like that.
Probably.
Yeah. All right, Lily, let's talk a little bit more about characters because I know that that seems to be a sweet spot for you. So, oftentimes, a main character is called a protagonist, right? What
Yes.
qualities do you think make for a really great protagonist?
Kind, brave, forgiving, and hero.
Ooh, I like that, right? And I like that you point out that they're kind of the hero of the story, right? They're the ones that typically drive the story forward, right? They want something, they have a difficult time obtaining that something. That's what makes her a really strong protagonist, right? Is they push the story forward. Yeah. Can you think of
Mhm.
any examples that have been really strong protagonists for you?
Mario, Frodo, Rapunzel, bunch
Ooh,
of them.
absolutely. And that's a wide variety for sure. So you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned Frodo, and you know that that's one of my very favorite stories in the entire world. So yeah, Frodo's actions, right? It drives the story forward. Without Frodo, how would we get the ring to Mordor, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned Mario. I know you love the Mario movies for sure.
Mm.
And Rapunzel. Yeah, you went through a wonderful Disney princess phase. You're
Yeah.
not so much into it now, but yeah, Rapunzel's and also a very good example.
Yeah.
So if we're thinking about protagonists, we also have to think about antagonists, right? The villain in the story.
Yes.
What do you think makes for a good villain outside of them just kind of being a mean person?
How they want this thing and
Mm,
how they would make a plan to get it. Because there always has to be a reason.
absolutely. Yeah, I like that you point that out, right? There needs to be some kind of compelling motive, right? Your villain can't just be like a mean person and that just be the end of it. There needs to be a true reason for why they're becoming the obstacle, right? For that protagonist. So
Mm-hmm.
again, I think a character profile would be a really great place to start when you're developing an antagonist, because then we could figure out what is the motive? Why are they trying to stop this? Can you think of
Yeah.
any bad guys in movies, villains,
Mm-hmm.
antagonists?
Like Frodo. Wait, no. I mean, I mean, um, Gollum's kind of,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, he kind of
I can
sounds
see
bad.
why you think that. Yeah, he does become a roadblock, doesn't he, in the story
Yeah.
for sure. Yep.
Voldemort from Harry Potter.
You read my mind. That's where I was going next too, for sure. Yeah, Voldemort. And we learn a little bit more about his character, right? And why he does the things that he does. So
Yeah.
yeah, having a reason and maybe even giving them a little bit of space for redemption, that makes for a really strong antagonist.
Yeah.
Well, Lily, let's think about this for a moment, right? We're talking about protagonists and antagonists, right? And it's kind of that push pull between them in a story. And that's what we call conflict, right? So imagine a story where everyone gets along and nothing goes wrong. Would that be
That would,
interesting?
there's no
Mhm.
plot, that would just be nothing.
Exactly, right? So we need some kind of conflict to take place, right? For your characters to have some kind of challenge for them to overcome. You're right. And I think sometimes as authors, we might lose sight of that. And so developing a really strong conflict from the get go, that's what's going to push your story forward. Yeah. Well, Lil, you mentioned setting a couple of times. So let's think a little bit about world building. When you imagine a story, what comes first? Do you think about the setting? Think about the characters? Do you think about the plot? What's most important?
I think about the characters and the setting first because that's what takes place of the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you. I think the characters typically will drive your story. There's a little bit of a debate, I would say, in the writing world of what's most important or what comes first, kind of your characters or your plot. But I'm with you. I think the characters are the most compelling source of the story, and it's what readers will come back to. But you also mentioned setting, and I think that's equally as important, right? If you're not in a space that's going to do something for the story or it's not going to be well developed, it's really difficult for the reader.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Okay, Lil. Well, let's talk a little bit about what being a strong reader does for your writing career. So, do you think reading helps you become a better storyteller?
Definitely, because you need to learn how to read to write.
Yes, that is very true, right? But being an avid reader, right, it exposes you to more stories. It exposes you to different types of writing, different types of genres, right? It
Yeah.
expands your imagination for sure. So,
Yeah.
what are some of your favorite books that you've read?
I Know You Started It. That's a
Mhm.
great book. I love the intro. The title is what bring me into the story. I wanted that book from the book fair for weeks, and that really grabbed my attention.
Yeah, that's a really good example, right? So the book, I Know You Started It, you talked about that all week when the book fair was taking place at your school. And I was so excited when you finally got your hands on that copy. Um, but what was really cool about that is it had a really fantastic introduction. It was perfect for your age, right? It just pulled you right in. Yeah. So
Yes.
being an avid reader, right? I think every writer knows this already, right? But having that ability to expand your imagination and expose you to different spaces and different ways of storytelling, that only improves your craft.
Yes.
So, Lil, what's the hardest part about creating a story? Is it like coming up with the idea? Is it writing the actual story? Is it thinking about the ending? What's the hardest part?
I think the hardest part is the little details in the story that can like change everything. Like
Mm,
in the plot, how the villain does this
yeah,
or the hero saves this. Like I
yeah,
think that could be
the
really
hardest part.
hard.
Yeah, so a little bit more of creating that external plot, I would say, is kind of the hardest part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. We can go into a story idea with like, oh, I have a loose idea of kind of how this is going to play out.
Yeah.
And sometimes your characters kind of do what they want and they help you kind of guide the story themselves. So I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the hard part. What's your favorite part about storytelling?
My favorite part about storytelling is the characters.
Mhm.
But like that has to be like my favorite thing in
Yeah,
coming up with the title.
yeah. I do like the title part of it too. It's very
Yeah, that is my favorite
important.
part.
Well, Lil, you just wrapped up third grade, right? You're heading into fourth. So this is kind of I would say, a key moment where students of your age are getting more interested in storytelling. And this is something you've enjoyed for quite a while already. So, what advice maybe would you offer to a student who's kind of just getting into the storytelling space? How would they get started?
I would offer of saying the title is the most important part that what brings you into the whole story by grabbing it.
Yeah.
And definitely the characters, be careful on the name and like the plot's like the main thing of the story, so
Yeah.
add a bunch of detail to that.
So lots of things to think through right before you get started. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you like to kind of outline your story before you write it, or do you kind of just make it up as you go?
I like outlining it first,
Yeah.
and sometimes I start as I grow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I don't know if you've heard these terms before, but there's something called a plotter, which is a author who plots out your story chapter by chapter. You know exactly
Yeah.
what's going to happen. Or there's something called a pantser, and that's an author who just lets them, they just sit down and they just let the characters kind of drive the story and they make it up as they go along. You see where
Yeah.
it plays out. So I've done both. I think there's value in both approaches, but what do you think your approach would be?
Mm, what are they called again?
A plotter or a pantser?
A plotter.
Plotter, yeah.
Yeah.
That seems to fit your personality. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Lily, let's talk about your dream story. So, if you could write any story in the whole world in any genre, what do you think your favorite story would be that you'd want to tell?
Probably about my family because the fun never ends.
That's a very sweet answer. You got plenty of source material when it comes to your brothers, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, final thoughts here today. Why do you think stories are so important? What do they teach us?
Well, some teach us life lessons, how to make a story,
Mhm.
and where the fun doesn't end.
Yeah, definitely, right?
Yeah.
Storytelling is wonderful. And the earlier you get into it, I think the more opportunity you have to just kind of cultivate that skill set throughout your lifetime.
Yeah.
I love that you're a storyteller, and I love that you love to consume stories too. All right, Lily. Well, thank you so much for joining me today on the Just Right Julie show. I think sometimes adults forget that storytelling starts with something really very simple, just curiosity, imagination, and asking yourself, what if? So, whether you're writing your first story in fourth grade or your 10th novel as an adult, these same fundamentals, they never really change. So, thank you for listening to the Just Right Julie show, the podcast where writing meets strategy and creativity meets clarity. You can follow along and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And for any writing resources that you might be interested in or behind the scenes content, you can visit author julienavickas.com. Until next time, just write and don't be afraid to be strategic about it. Thanks, Lily.